All right, we're going live here. We've got an emergency Stitchdown podcast recap. I don't know what we're going to call this. But we need to get our buddies over from the Stitchdown Premium Discord into the chat here. So before we get started here, all right, I just need 1 minute to send this link to Mr. Ben, who is in the chat, and everybody can see right now. So there you go, Ben.
This is a Stitchdown Shoecast continuation episode where not only do I get to gang up on Phil to ask him questions about leather that he knows the answer to, but you know, still has to dig into the memory banks for. But now everybody's going to come at him, and that's fantastic. We're just going to see how he holds up.
Yeah.
Should be fine. Should be fine.
If you guys are hearing us, just let me know how things are coming across. If things are playing for you and you can hear it. We kind of did this quickly and on the fly. So hopefully it's working. And maybe we'll just give people just a minute to sort of like get in here before we start with the chat. But are you drinking anything? I was just trying to tell everybody to like rep this Metallica whiskey, which I'm super pumped about. I really like whiskey, and I used to love Metallica, and it's surprisingly delicious. So, oh hey, yeah. Sergey's here, BC's here. All right, looks like we're going, man.
Enter night, Phil.
The funniest part about this whiskey was when you buy it, they send it to you with like a little like birth certificate, and you can go on their website to find the batch number, and it tells you the Metallica songs they played to it, like while it was aging.
That's pretty good. Now that's real supplemental content. So is this, but
so I'm gonna let you host my my channel here, man. Let's have it.
About time. Again, people probably can't really tell us apart, so we should be okay. But yeah, I've got myself a little Talisker 10 here. One of the finest kind of daily driver semi-budget scotches that you can get as far as I'm concerned. Not the most exciting, just gets it done.
Ben's audio needs a boost. I'm going to boost you.
Boost me, please. The proofage, 45.8%. I can't do that math. 91.6. 91.6? 90.6? Yeah. Who knows? Who knows how proof works?
I think you just double it, right?
I think yeah, but it's tough. There's a decimal point.
All right, I'm boosting you, but you should be loud enough to hear.
How's everybody doing out there? Did I turn up the gain?
Yeah, I just gained you a bit. It should be much more evenly matched. We're an even match with each other.
Well, halfway through, we should switch hats and just throw everybody off.
I'm into it. Let's do it.
I think this is good. All right. It seems like we got some people here. That's great. Thank you, everybody, for the patience. But, yeah, to kind of frame it all up, Phil was, I would say, somewhere between, the first and 52nd greatest guest that we ever had on the Stitchdown Shoecast 1 week ago today. And that was the longest episode ever, Phil, by the way. Almost 2 hours.
Yeah.
Possibly the longest of anything.
Worth it, I'd say. I enjoyed it. I had a really fun time. And I think, 15 minutes of it was just pizza talk, so that doesn't count.
Which is actually, like, as a percentage, is probably pretty low for that show. But, I got a lot of follow-up questions from people. How could I possibly be even close to the only person who gets to ask you questions about tonight, anything. The first episode was, how is it made? If you haven't listened to the episode, I wouldn't recommend doing it now right while you're doing this, but you should. And also on Stitchdown.com, on the episode article, Phil made a really cool flow chart that kind of takes you through how leather is made in different stages, the kind of the wings that you could shoot out to in a type of decision tree, which is fantastic. So, some of the questions that we've got definitely involve that process. A lot of them are just kind of about leather and how it's used. And I would say that that's all extremely valid. And yeah, with any luck, we may be able to turn this into supplemental podcast episode. Obviously, we're live on YouTube, so consume, everybody, consume. Phil, you think you're ready for all this?
Honestly, the heat is on, right? I feel mildly stressed by the change up of going live onto YouTube. But I think we got this. Oh, some friendly faces, though, are making me feel better. Like we got Marco in the chat. And thanks, everybody, for coming to hang out. But yeah, let's do it, man. I haven't eaten any croissant pizza today. I did not eat deep dish. Didn't really have any pizza at all. Do we want to have a pizza chat? Did you?
No.
Okay.
No,
skipping
we've got
that 15-minute segment.
We're going hot dogs today. Another lightning rod topic. But yeah, as we go, like people have submitted questions in the Stitchdown Discord basically all day long. I've got them all listed out. If you're in the Discord and listening to this, put them in the Discord. We'll check there. If you're on YouTube, which would make sense because you're listening live, at least right now, you can put questions in there, including where's Ticho? I think Ticho is like driving home quite a far distance from New York City to like the goat farm that he lives next to in New Jersey. So hopefully we get him later.
I still have not met Ticho, which is a real shame.
He's out there, man.
I'll dig him up.
He's driving.
So with
just supporting the tire industry, it's like they made the Michelin Guide, and then they made Ticho's house. And they're like, you can't live near where you work ever.
I was going to say
those tires.
I realized like when you did our announcement today in Discord, I was realizing that the community is mostly about footwear, boots, shoes, etc. And I'm just a guy that knows about some of the processes at one tannery of like how leather is made and some features and characteristics. And I worry that a lot of people want to know like what's the best leather. And I think I just want to say this on the outset here that there's no like one ring to rule them all here. There's sort of like depends on what you're trying to do. If actually somebody from Discord sent me a few private messages today and wanted to have a phone call, so I chatted him up about it. I came to realize that it felt like he really wanted me to tell him what to do. And my goal is not necessarily, I can tell you what I like, but I don't necessarily think that what I like is going to mean that you also will like it or should like it. There's going to be things that, and that's why there's so many different leathers, so many different tanneries. There's going to be things that you appreciate more than the next person. And it also depends a lot on, what you're going to do with it. So the person I was speaking with today was really worried about, why his veg tan leather hiking boots were soaking up water. And, it's like, I like veg, but it might not be appropriate or that particular specific vegetable tannage from that particular tannery was soaking up a lot of water. I like veg as much as the next person, but it, might not be the best. Like super thick veg in a hiking boot might not be the best option. So there's a little bit more nuance, which is sort of the goal of my life right now. Is just trying to explain some of that nuance and hopefully answer questions. What's up, Hugh? So yeah, did you aggregate and collect some of those questions from Discord? I skimmed the first couple, and I haven't really gone much farther than that.
I've got the goods. It's my job. So all right, I've got the goods. I like this one. I feel like we've taken a stab at this one on one of the shoe bag episodes on the podcast, and almost surely got it wrong. So let's go with this. From our boy Matt89. Why do some leathers darken over time, natural CXL, for example, while others lighten over time, color 8 shell?
Yeah, this is one of the couple that I saw. So vegetable tanned leathers as a general rule, and again, as I mentioned in the podcast, there's exceptions to every rule. But generally speaking, most veg tan leathers, these veg tan leathers are leathers that are tanned using tree barks. They're a little bit more, like we were talking about the cyborg thing with chrome tan is a little bit like more human and metal together, where veg tan is organic, like full organic tree barks with skin, and you're binding all that together. Those veg tan leathers, tan with tree barks, tend to have better aging characteristics. They tend to polish up just with natural use. They get a little bit shinier, and they almost develop like layers of luster. You mentioned shell cordovan color 8. I do even see with the cordovan color 8 these layers of luster develop. The color doesn't necessarily change to become lighter on color 8 shell unless it's hit with sunlight. And this is something that you can see in a lot of aniline leathers or leathers that don't have a UV protective top coat to them. You need something to prevent the UV light from, hitting the dyes that are finished onto the leather. And you can see some fading that way. In fact, there's the Alden, Brett Klein from Alden has done some really incredible sun fading of different shell colors. You can check out Brett Klein's Instagram for that.
The faded boot, I believe, is his hashtag, right?
Is that, I don't know what his, I forget. I think his Klein Brett
boot. Oh yeah, Klein Brett. I mean, everybody should follow Brett Klein. He's great. He takes cool pictures of lobsters and also boots.
And incredibly
also, he's
just knowledgeable. Guy. Yeah, he's super nice. Although I'll say this, since we're on my Ashland YouTube channel here, I had to pull his episodes that I did with him, and nobody's called me on it yet. But I did a couple sort of podcasty type episodes with him about Alden, and Alden just doesn't want anybody from Alden talking about Alden, which is a real shame because he's so knowledgeable. But anyways,
Art Tarlo entered the chat. Phil, come on.
Oh no. Well, so anyways, veg tan as a general rule tends to become darker with age, and Chrome Excel, which is the first part of the question you asked, Chrome Excel is vegetable tanned and chrome tanned. In fact, it's a chrome tan base tannage, and it has a vegetable retannage. So you get a little bit of the best of both worlds. I don't tend to see the darker Chrome Excel colors to become much darker. So meaning like a dark brown doesn't tend to get darker over time. In my experience, I tend to see a more dramatic color darkening happen with lighter shades like the natural Chrome Excel. So any leather that has some amount of those tree barks in it, any leather that has either like a full veg tannage or...
It used to look like this.
That's natural Chrome Excel?
Yeah. This is like really funky stuff that had, some, I don't know how well anybody can see this, but some of these dark patches here and here were present from go. But yeah, I mean, these boots simply did not look like this, 8 months ago or whenever I got them.
I find the Chrome Excel to be a little bit more like mild development of patina. I don't find it to be as dramatic as like a full veg. Like the guy I was speaking to today picked up some Wicked and Craig bridal leather for his boots, and that sort of pit tan veg stuff is going to develop in a more dramatic way in terms of darkening and even just the luster development.
Yeah, so this is the Wicked Buck Brown, which is it's getting more caramelly over time, and I frankly haven't worn these much the last couple months or since October, really, when I started wearing 2 pairs of boots and then cheating on them. But yeah, and this stuff, this one might show it better. This one hasn't been conditioned yet. But this caught this crazy abrasion from, it wasn't a crazy abrasion. It was just kind of crazy what happened from the original kilties that were in here. They were kind of rubbing on them. I was like, I might roll with these kilties. And then I looked, 2 days after getting these things, and I was like, this is going to be black just from the kiltie rubbing it. So I pulled them out, and, it kind of looked a little funny but cool for a while, and then the boot darkened around it. So that pressure or, it was the same leather. So it's
Is
not
it
like a different form of dye was rubbing off on it. Like I can't imagine how that would have been the case.
It's not dented in there. It just sort of like was rubbed against and changed colors. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's completely flat.
That's kind of what veg does. Is it, if it just rubs, like you can see it on the tongue or the gusset of your boot, like just how like shiny it's become there. Like that's what I'm talking about. Like I love that. I just think that's the coolest. In fact, from the quality of this webcam, it almost looks like a piece of shell or something, right? Just like how smooth and shiny it is.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of absolutely beautiful. And frankly, yeah, like it's not really creased. It's just like push the hell in. I remember now. So like, gut check this one, Phil. I remember what Ticho came up with on that shoe bag episode. He was like, I think I'm getting this right. All leather wants to kind of end up becoming like the same color. This was Ticho's Bro Science Theater 3000 all the way. It's like, so the darker stuff will fade, but it's not true of everything, but like black shell fades, black CXL, all sorts of blacks kind of will not look jet black unless you're putting black polish on them. And the lighter stuff like wants to go there too, and then they kind of meet in the middle and hang out, and like all these leathers are just having fun.
I feel like.
What do you think of that, Phil?
I feel like you could make a pretty convincing argument that most of the shell cordovan tends to want to go the same direction. Mm-hmm. I haven't honestly and I've messed around with a lot of black shell. I don't feel like the black really changes. I have seen somebody recently in the Discord fade some black shell and it looked pretty brown. That's unusual. I haven't really seen that ever. They might have stripped it off or something. I've never seen that happen myself.
There's a pair at Alden Madison, and I feel like there was a pair at City Shoes that was like even more aggressive. That it was black shell and it's just been sitting in the window, display model for like 18 years.
Well, that's the UV thing.
Yeah, and it just looks cool, different, like not super great, but yeah, it turns, it takes a different path and it kind of like skips all these colors and then just like pales out eventually. And it's like kind of like a weird green in between. Yeah, somebody posted this pair of black shell boots, forget if it was in the Discord or on Instagram, within the last week that were just, thrashed in addition to possibly sun faded. And you couldn't have told that that's what they were. Like, I don't know. I keep telling myself I'm going to just go to town on my black shell stitch-up boots, and I never do it.
I've never seen a pair or piece of black shell do that. So that was unusual and also kind of awesome. I don't know what I would call that color, but it was like a more brown than black.
Yeah. Yeah. It becomes somewhat indefinable. But I think we did a great job on this first question.
Well, so I got the fading. Why do some colors fade? You shouldn't see it fade unless the light really gets it. And if it's fading sort of naturally, the tannery may have finished it that way on purpose. You can find, we talked about in the podcast again, sort of like weak binder coats or weak adhesion coats that don't really hold on the top coat very well, and it sort of flakes off. There's like this ghost leather that looks super cool. That's sort of
the La Britannia.
If you've seen that like black on red ghost, you could kind of make an argument for fading with that, but you're probably not going to see it fade unless it's just left in the sun. So yeah, I think we got that one done. Nailed it.
Great work, Phil. Let's see. Okay, I like this one because I don't know anything close to a proper answer on this. When retan leather is talked about, it's initially chrome tanned, then vegetable retanned. What do you know about the opposite? Vegetable tanned initially, then chrome retanned. Does it happen?
You can do that. It's called rechroming. It's not something that is as common, and I'm not certain why. You can do it. I'd be curious to see. Horween could do it. They'd have to like reformulate everything. which I've been there when they've re-chromed stuff. I just don't recall like what the big deal was. I think sometimes they'll take chrome tan and then add even more chrome in the retanning to get crazy soft. But I don't know. That's a pretty good question. I don't necessarily know what would happen if you did a chrome tannage with a veg. Excuse me. I don't know what would happen if you did a veg tannage with a chrome retan, and why they wouldn't do that for everything. I'm not sure. Good question.
We're gonna outsource that one.
Yeah, I'll ask
If
Nick.
anybody knows the answer to that, just text Nick real quick and tell him to do some reformulations and give us some answers.
You know what? On the Nick question, he mentioned. I asked him because he listened to it. I was like, "Oh, what'd you think, man?" And he's like, "Yeah, it was really great. There was one thing that I had talked about with the splitting and the splits that Horween produces as a byproduct, and he said that I could have been even more clear about it. Is the splits that Horween produces are not typically thick enough to be produced into most things that they would want to make, or even Stead. Like Stead's buying super thick splits. So that was one thing he called me out on. And something about, he said I was like sort of conflating the grading process, where there's a specific grading method that's, you know, like a language that is more understandable by more footwear makers and tanners around the world, called Satra, and there's like this specific grading system. I was conflating that grading system with some of the non super formalized grading system. Anyways, if you're familiar with Satra, you'd be able to pick out like how slightly wrong, or like how slightly like conflated that was. But generally speaking, like the grading system at the tannery is based on like cuttable area of a hide, with the exception of shell cordovan, which is just graded on the piece. Just how large that oval is how much they'll charge you for it. And those are the only things with the grades. So, sorry.
No, I mean, I was waiting for my opportunity to
correct me and stuff.
So to talk about how much Nick loved the episode. Sends a text being like, "Love the episode, but..." I was like, "Hey, I just asked a question." So. But no, he said that, yeah, we did a pretty darn good job, and goddamn did we cover a lot of ground. All right, this one just came in. I like this. So I know every tannery's tanning process affects the qualities of what the final leather is going to be like, but how much does the initial hide affect how a hide ends up? Like, will two steers produce a better or worse hide depending on breed or age, calf excluded, or conditions that it's lived in? And I think that, you know, I'm going to kind of add to this a little bit and say, let's call them defects, you know, scratches, nicks, burrs, the old cow diaper rash that we discussed on the episode. Let's exclude those. And then say, like, you got two cows side by side. Like, what else is affecting how the end product comes out?
Well, the big one we're excluding, but that grain clarity is sort of one of the two big things. The other is, well, there's two other things that one of them kind of encroaches on the first topic, but you might be familiar with stretch marks. Like, I would bundle that sort of thing into grain clarity. You tend to see a lot of, we call them fat wrinkles and draw. You tend to see a lot of fat wrinkles on the necks of some animals. And in the tanning process, you're not really able to sort of lay those out so those wrinkles are flat and less visible. So you will get a valley in the same way that you would get a valley by embossing a piece. So one animal standing next to another might have deeper sort of like neck wrinkles or even like belly wrinkles. That you might consider that part of the grain clarity, but that's sort of a natural variance you see. And the other really big one is the thickness, and which is ironic because those fat wrinkles tend to show up on more of those plump hides, the hides that you would want to source to produce heavyweight products like belts, or even some of the heavyweight stuff that Viberg uses for their boots. You want those, you cannot produce a plump skin from a plump animal. Like you need, so in fact, there's different grades of hides that a tannery will source. And the ones that Horween sources most often is called a jumbo native steer. There's also a heavy native steer. There's also so the native steer means that it has not been branded. There's you can buy brands. You can buy a butt branded steer. I mean, there's all sorts of different categories. There's Colorado, they call them collies, and I think they're branded in the center on one side, but you get the other side that's completely clear, and they just charge less for them. So there's all these different hides that are variable by thickness. So even if you're ordering jumbos, they may not all give you a belt weight. In fact, if I remember correctly, only a certain percentage of those jumbos, the biggest thing you can get, I think you only get, if I remember correctly, it's 15% of those are good enough for belts. So it's surprisingly difficult to get belt weight chrome excel. So us at Ashland, we've been making belts for Grant Stone. It's really tough to get enough thick chrome excel from the tannery just to make a couple hundred belts for them and for ourselves. And I think you're going to actually see some challenges in the next couple of years probably of leather sourcing. And it's mostly, it's not necessarily a hide thing. It's unclear of that, but I think people are still eating a lot of beef. It's more of these tanneries are having a hard time getting people to make the leather. And then on top of that, it's they've been shut down and haven't been able to make as much as they normally would. So they're just backlogged forever. And then you're trying to get a rare thing. It's going to be a while to get a good source on heavyweight chrome excel. So if you see it somewhere and you want it, I wouldn't really wait around. And that might go for most things right now. If you want something, you should probably just grab it.
Yeah. So let's keep going on this, because I think it's always really important to discuss just, what the last couple years have wrought on all facets of, the footwear industry, small leather goods industry. One, it's interesting to know. I think it can create more understanding in a customer who's waiting for something forever. I think it potentially could brace us all for some price hikes on all the stuff that we love in the coming years. When you just look at all these forces and just inflation in general. But what, Phil, are you seeing outside of that one example as somebody who purchases leather and then turns it into something else to sell to somebody else every day?
You're saying what are the supply chain issues right now?
What are you seeing? You're at a certain part of the stream that gives a snapshot of where you're at and is possibly representative of everything, right? What's it like specifically?
Well, I think the answer mildly depends on how large of a manufacturer the footwear brand is, or the leather goods manufacturer like myself is. We're really small, so Ashland sort of gets, there's a perception that we get favored treatment, but we actually get pushed behind most everybody else. But the thing that people don't understand about Ashland is we've put in orders for stuff years ago. So the leather that we're selling today, we ordered in 2019, 2020.
That's wild.
And on top of that, honestly, I just like the leather. So we just have racks of leather that I've collected that I like, that I've had for 10 years. So it's a little bit misleading there. But if I wanted, like I said, if Grant Stone, which I'm expecting to make some more belts for Grant Stone, if Grant Stone came to me tomorrow and said, I'd really like to get a few hundred belts, I'm probably looking at least 6 months just to get the leather in. And then I have to turn around and craft it into, hundreds of belts. So what we're seeing right now is, and I'll speak to Horween specifically, even though I'm not a representative for Horween. But what I see there is there's just such a backlog from COVID. And I know people have been mad at me for blaming things on COVID, but unfortunately it's just the fact that people have been shut down by COVID. You know, in the city of Chicago here, we're pretty strict. So they shut down businesses for a while in 2020. People have been actually sick. They've had people die at the tannery. So it's not a joking matter. People are dying. And, they've sort of an aging workforce at Horween. Certainly there's some younger folks like Marco, who was in the chat as one of the younger up-and-comers over there. But, there's a guy, Neil, who's one of my favorite people. I think he's in his 49th working year at Horween, so you'd have to extrapolate his age there. So they just have a aging workforce that is a little bit more susceptible to this virus. So people are dying, people are sick, they're being safe, people are staying at home. There's just less people working. And as a consequence of that, the orders for leather haven't gone away. In fact, they've increased. So the backlog sort of keeps expanding. And the leathers that Horween tends to make tend to take a long time. So we're just going to see a logjam of a lot of things, especially something like a heavyweight or a leather that is a long production time, like the Chrome Excels and the Shell Cordovans. I think you're going to just see longer wait times. The other crazy stuff is I keep in touch with Skip, and Skip's probably watching this right now. I know sometimes he peeks in and makes sure I'm not lying. But I remember, hey, what's up, Skip? Skip actually called me earlier. He's like, oh, I got a new, if you want to know the name for one of your next wallets, I've been reading about the 1940s Bears teams. You got to name your wallets after some of these old Bears players. I forget the name of the guys, but he said they had funny nicknames. So anyways, in 2020, over the last 2 years during the pandemic, Skip would tell me, he's like, I can't believe I just got this letter. And I said, what are you talking about? Well, he's sourcing so many different materials in so many different categories because they do all the functions at Horween that some tanneries might only do one function of, like finishing, tanning, retanning, the splitting. They do sort of all of it. And because they have all those different things, they get all these suppliers that have different materials. And he would tell me that he would receive letters from his suppliers saying, hey, your prices are going up. We can't tell you how much, but they're going to go up. So then if you're Skip, how do you run your business knowing that your prices are going up, but you don't know what they'll be? So there's there's a significant amount of uncertainty there also. So prices are going up, like wait times are going up. That's what I'm seeing as far as like the supply side for my business. And then for us, we have a hard time making things as fast as possible, and we do a pretty good job because I try to not overcommit and I try to not sell stuff that I don't have. I know a lot of people in the small leather goods sort of community like to pre-sell stuff and then buy the leather and make it. We sort of do the opposite. Like, I know that you don't want to wait, so I'll make it and only sell it when I have it. But even then, it takes a good amount of care and time to like properly sew and bevel and do all the finishing for a wallet. So we've been backlogged, and we lost a person quit from Ashland to go work on their own. So there's not, and I'm happy for them, by the way, for Amir, who left us. Super happy for him because he wanted to sort of stretch his wings. But it's not like I can just go into, I don't know, where do people find jobs these days? Like a job board and say like, come make leather wallets. Like, that's not a thing that people are necessarily looking to do. I bet I could find people, but it's not that easy to find like people that want to do work. I think a lot of people want to do a bend job and just write blog articles. Shots fired.
Hang out with Phil. The greatest joy in the world. No, so I actually, this is like, further detour from the original question, but I think it's all related and it's all important, and I can't personally stop thinking about it and sometimes talking about it. But yeah, like I had Chris Warren on, taping a shoecast yesterday. It'll be out in a few weeks from Wesco Boots. And, we got into all this too. It's like, okay, yeah, supply chain. Okay, yeah, leather production, leather prices. We didn't even really get into pricing. It was just like, how do you make these things? And it's like, well, yeah, we don't have enough boot makers, and the old people like need to stop, and the young people just aren't coming. And it's like, well, I know a whole bunch of people who are like making their own boots from scratch and figuring the whole damn thing out, who are, I'm just going to silence my creaky phone telling me that the Phil Leather chat is starting in 10 minutes because we started an hour early. Like how it isn't like an Indeed.com thing, right? But so many people are interested in this. You kind of have to live in a locality. I don't know how well remote work functions for boot making. Maybe you could train somebody and they could make stuff like at their home in, wherever Illinois or further afield, and then like ship it back to you. Maybe, like, I don't know. But it's like, how there's so many people who are interested in this, and plenty of them have other jobs that they're not planning on leaving, but some of them don't. And like, it seems like just the idea that it's even a possibility that these opportunities could be available to somebody is like not known. Or like, how do you find people in the first place? Like, where do they come from? I think these are things that, anybody working in the industry of making wonderful things that are built the right way really needs to consider, because it seems like there's not an answer here. I mean, the Jim McFarlane episode today, the cobbling, which is, very high skill stuff, not to say that what you're doing isn't, but, it takes 2 to 3 years to get trained up as a proper cobbler. Like, went from 120,000 cobbler shops in 1928, I believe, to 3,500 today in the U.S. And I forget the exact percentage, but let's say 70% of them are 55 or older that exist now in 3,500 shops. Like, what's going to happen, Yeah. And like, how do you get people in? How do you pay them right? I don't know. You know more than me. I'm just sitting here being like, let's fix this.
Yeah, I have an answer for you. And so if anybody in the chat here, I just turned on a noise gate for my microphone. So if it sounds weird or stupid, just let me know.
Sound great to me.
I think it's sort of a historical context that is important here. And my opinion, and I'm an idiot, but my opinion is, we've sort of lost our way as Americans of, maybe I shouldn't speak as Americans, but like, just feel like the United States, we don't really make stuff like physical things anymore. And I think I just saw somebody in the chat said, pay is a big factor. I think that's a lot of it. I like cheap t-shirts from Target or Amazon, and that's fine. But I also buy pretty fancy t-shirts. And what's funny is, like, when I think about the amount of time that it would take me to make a t-shirt, it's like, man, that expensive one is really cheap. So I think, just sort of generally speaking, the price that we pay for things in the United States, we have a distorted view of what that really costs. And I really don't understand how I see some of the prices for things that I see. Like, even like nice stuff. Like, I don't know if you have any Thursday boots behind you, but Thursday makes a really nice looking jacket out of Chrome Excel. So their natural jackets are Chrome Excel. I look at that jacket that they sell for, I think they sell it for $350. And I look at that and I say, that's at least $400 just in leather. So how are they making that? and it confuses me. So, like, I don't know how some things are even possible. So I think that's part of it is, the cost and the price that we as a society are willing to pay for things. Like, it doesn't really align with the reality of like what people want to do the work for. And then, you got a guy sitting at home trading NFTs and Bitcoins, like making more money than anybody in any tannery.
Not the last few weeks.
Well, it's being over the last couple of years here, right? Or I mean, it's not even the last couple of years. It's like my lifetime, like since the 80s. We got maybe even before that. Just like the globalization of things has made us stop. Like the capitalism part of all of it makes it so like, why would we as Americans do that job when we could just do something else and make more money? So I think it's a lot of that.
Yeah, there's something to that, but also it's like somebody left. You're looking to hire one person, Wesco, whites, whoever. They'd love to hire 5 people and they'd be full up. Like there's 332 million people in America.
Mm-hmm. That's a good point.
It's like, God, like I don't know. I don't know if like the opportunity is not apparent or the pay isn't there, like it's totally possible because I mean, that's the thing that I try and convey to people, especially about footwear and certainly about what you're doing, Phil, is like, yes, an expensive product. This is a low margin business. Like it's not there. Like all the work, all the materials, everything being shipped from everywhere. It's not like 5x margin. Like it's like 2x, at least in footwear. And like there's not enough wiggle room unless the prices get raised for the consumer, and then you run into a whole different problem. And I think there's a subset of people who would, with the right understanding, semi-happily pay it. But it goes too far. It's like, well, now nobody can actually buy it or wants to buy it. And like, then what do we do? And it's not, it's not a scalable thing. It's only so scalable. Let's put it that way.
You're reminding me of something. I have 2 points to make. I like to thank my customers for a very specific reason. And it's sort of what we're talking about is it takes a really special type of person to think about the things that they are using and buying. So like when I talk about buying a $5 t-shirt, which I've done, I don't really think about that much. And then I have a little bit more money as I get older. And I start to think about these things a little bit more. So like, where's it made? What's the material? Like, what does it look like? Can I tell the difference of how it's made? And it takes a special person to sit there and look at a thing and understand it and think about it, and maybe even do the research to appreciate like why that thing that they paid $200 for is a special thing. And that's what I think all the people that support us for is like, I realize like how crazy it is to spend $100 of your hard-earned money on a wallet that's going to hold your money. It's sort of like a superfluous thing. Like my father-in-law uses a broccoli rubber band, or he was until I made him use a wallet. So it takes a special person to like spend the mental effort to like think about these things. And you have a whole community in Discord that is like next level on that attention and the care for the things that they're picking up. So I think that's important. And the other thing that you were saying is, we're talking about a shoemaker that might need one person to come work. Like, how is it possible that they can't find one person? I think that's an interesting question, because I think about like a restaurant, and the restaurants that I go to have people working there. So I wonder what it is. Maybe the task is so daunting that they feel like, how am I ever going to make a shoe? And then like a task like, bar back at a bar or whatever is like not such a big deal in their minds, even though I'm certain there's challenges there too.
The first day I worked as a bar back, the first day I worked as a server, like any of these things. I was like, oh yeah, it's just a place and you got a beer at the end of the day. Maybe in the middle. Not at the places I worked, unfortunately.
Well, we don't have
and it was like crazy. It was like that first day out on the floor serving, you're like, I might not make it, like physically. And you know, it's a different type of physical work, but I mean, than bootmaking, than leather goods, than anything. But man, it's not easy work. And most of the time, it also pays like shit. And can we say that on YouTube? And
you do whatever you want.
Great.
Well, what about
service
like
industry pays like shit for the most part.
There's no like trade school for bootmakers in the United States, right? It's like, where are you learning that?
There largely is not. And we talked about it with Jim McFarland on the episode that aired today. There's one that may be emerging for cobbling, which is, you know, different technically from cord weighting, bootmaking. But you know, it's not there. And that's the thing. There's a lot of restaurants, right? You go to Spokane, you're like, oh, there's 5 bootmakers. What a bonanza. You know, we're like, oh, these bootmakers in Indonesia. There's like 30 in the 3rd most populous country in the world, which I think is accurate. So yeah, there's just, you know, there's all these other opportunities and things that are on people's minds and less of a commitment. You can bounce around and whatever. I don't know. We're going on this one for a while. People are putting, like, if anybody's not paying attention to the chat on this, you should, because I think there's some fantastic like macro stuff going on in there, and like macro takes on just how money and capitalism and everything works. But yeah, in the end, it's like, yeah, it feels like at least, yeah, the cobbling one's crazy because the numbers decline is insane. And a lot of those cobblers are very old and they just want to make their buck and get out, and they don't want to train the next person. And like how do you learn? But you know, you teach people, you train people. That's what happens at these bootmakers. And you know, some days it seems like 30 people wanting to take these jobs and actually committing to them could like solve a whole lot. Not everything, but I don't know. I just want it all to keep going, right? Like that's kind of my whole thing.
Well, I wonder too, is just like, hey, come work at my shoe factory. And I think people see that and they go like, I don't know if that's like, if I can go up from there. Like I think that's like, they perceive that as like the end. It's like, that's the job and you're done. So maybe there's something to that.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. I mean, upward mobility, etc. Sure. You know, but you look at Chris, he started out at Wesco, started out on the floor doing stuff, goes back to the floor when he's kind of, you know, has a moment from his job running the entire sales operation and all the social media and everything like that. Like he's, you know, one of the people that runs an aspect of the company now. And yeah, it took him 20 years to get there, but man, like he loves it, you know.
Hang tight.
They seem like great places to work. I've never worked at any of these places. I don't know. It's all, I get worried about this stuff, man. I get worried, and I just, you know,
don't get worried
from a basement instead of the rooftops.
I've got Nick has been texting me, and I just sent him a Zoom link. I'm trying to rope him in to come answer questions. Oh, he says I'll join. All right, I sent him a Zoom link. Maybe he'll hop in here for a rare Nick appearance. Maybe he can tell us why.
Tell us everything, Nick.
Well, let's see if he hops in, man.
Yeah, like Aaron just brought up a great point in the chat. Like, yeah, you got to train people for a couple of years. You know, it's tough. And it's this whole damn chicken and egg. We haven't talked about leather in 18 to 26 minutes.
No, let's get back to it. I'm sure there were more questions in there too that I could answer.
Let's see. Well, we'll wait for Nick for one of these.
Okay.
All right. Here's a one that's right in the Phil wheelhouse. Speaking of CXL belts, I've read that CXL Chrome XL doesn't make as good a belt leather as Bridal or Harness or Veg Tan because of temper. Can you comment on the differences?
Yeah, Chrome XL tends to be more round, and it's got this interesting, like, not necessarily completely supple, but also not completely like boardy and firm. It's got this really strange temper. So when I feel Chrome Excel, I feel this like luxurious roundness, as opposed to if I feel like a bridal leather, it almost feels really boardy. Like it has such rigidity to it that it's hard to flex. So neither of these are inherently better or worse than the others. I find Chrome Excel to be quite serviceable for a belt, especially if you're getting like what we make is an online 8 to 9 ounce belt, and it's like very significant and substantial. Chrome Excel tends to have a little bit more stretch than some of the pasted veg tan stuff, which it depends on what bridal leather you're getting. They tend to have a little less stretch. Some of those veg tan leathers tend to be a little bit more dense also. So I think they look crazy badass, like those super tough guy veg belts that are really thick. And even when they make them in like 1 3/4 inch width strips, just have like a chunk belt, I think they look amazing. And then the way they wear it is great. I find them to be less comfortable because they're kind of like wearing a piece of wood around your waist. They don't have as much stretch. The other thing is they kind of make it sound like you're wearing a diaper when you walk around. Veg has this like very unique like squeak to it, which I don't. You're kind of nodding, Ben, but have you noticed that with veg, it's like it's like an old creaky chair. You kind of like diaper noise when you walk around.
I'm trying. I mean, I'm wearing the thick mofo right here, and yeah, I mean, I guess I got past that. I don't know. I have CXL belt and 2 Wicked and Craig, and then a Baker belt from Carmine Jack. And yeah, there's something about the belt like not stretching that I like.
Oh, Nick's here.
Up front, it's like, you know, it feels like you're wearing. Certainly feels like you're wearing a belt. You know.
What's up, Nick? You're wearing a beanie too.
Hi, Nick.
Can you hear us, man?
Yeah. You can hear me all right?
You look good. Good as hell.
We got hats, man.
Yeah, it's cold today, and now my hair is all fucked up.
Yeah, that's the thing. I'm thinking about just buzzing it all the way down.
Yeah.
And I'm probably still wearing the hat all winter.
Yeah.
So just a quick heads up, Nick. We're broadcasting to the internet. So don't say anything that would upset your mom, I guess. Oh, look at that.
Better than what? Coffee? Whatever.
I'll get the cleaning products on the background.
Where did that come from? Did you hear that?
That was...
Yeah.
I have no idea what that was. Probably. I'm going to blame Nick because you're the only variable that's changed.
Okay.
You know what that's probably coming from? These sound like noises that my band's Twitch stream does, but I don't see where I've got it linked in here.
You have like the buttons on your computer. Like you got some of the claps.
I don't know. We'll probably hear those a bit.
The visceral scream.
There was the goat scream and then the Tim Allen scream. All right. Anyways, Nick's here. You want to ask Nick some of the hard hitters questions?
Yeah. Sorry. I feel like I'm just crashing.
Chamois, CHAMOIS is pronounced chamois, not
loser.
Chamois. Oh my God. How do I turn that off?
Yeah. We pronounce it chamois because it's
I
like
need to get the chamois button. I've used that in the podcast before. It's like let's get Nick's take chamois. Worked well.
It's supposed to be like the oil tan, like cleaning cloth. It was like the inspiration for the name, I believe.
Yeah. Vince Shlomi, who invented it in 1892, I believe. Before getting
there's a ShamWow guy too, right?
By a lady. Well, yeah, it's him. Shlomi. ShamWow is the old Guy Ferguson French Canadian pronunciation that seeped into my brain, and man, it sounded good when he said it.
Yeah, I mean, it as long as you know what you're talking about.
I think I do. Maybe. Okay. Well, actually, still nobody's making shoes here. But let's do this one. There's a bunch of shell questions, obviously. But we're gonna throw this one at Nick. And obviously Phil, if you know this too. I do have a serious question. I also have his unserious question that we should get to that has been asked a lot, but the answer has always seemed confusing. What are the specific properties of shell cordovan that make it seem so easy to tear when making shoes, which is something that you hear all the time in terms of lasting shell and, you know,
it doesn't have good tensile strength,
even more
slit tear strength. Sorry, Nick, you go.
No, that's right. No, it's yeah, I mean, veg tan stuff in general has a much lower tensile strength than its chrome tanned or other tanned type counterparts. And it's just a function of how it gets cross-linked in the tanning process. Like all the fibers get linked together. It's just not as, I think when you and Phil were talking, you think about the difference between
pretty good.
I really got to figure out, honestly, I have no idea how that's getting in here. These are all the like when we do Twitch streams, like people can like emote all these noises.
Hey, golf, son. All right.
See, like, I don't know, but I have no Twitch open. I don't know where it's coming from.
Who do you think you are? I am.
Okay, I'm gonna have to figure this out.
Who's getting this?
I don't know where this is coming
Use
from.
them. Look, whoever's doing this, use them more selectively and hilariously, I would say.
It's coming from one of the three of us, and I think it's my computer, and I don't know where. So that's a concern. Anyways, I'll figure this out. Hang on. Well, keep the questions going.
Keep the questions going.
So the difference, think about it, the difference between like, you know, something like a mineral or even like a metal versus a tree bark or a wood, and just the strength is different there. And then there's that, and also I mean, I guess it depends on if you're talking about specifically our cordovan or somebody else's, but we leave the grain intact on the backside. That's not the shell, which helps with the strength because the grain is the strongest part of the hide itself. If you're looking at just a little piece, so if you split the grain off of it during the, you know, any part of the process to even the weight out, that's going to compromise strength too.
So, like, I guess it's just like the stretching part of it. But like, how does that compute with the idea that I have like a 50-year-old pair of shell shoes that nobody took care of for 49 years, and you put a little stuff on them and give them some love, and they're like ready to go forever? Like, they're both like incredibly, well, not incredibly, but like perhaps more breakable and yet also indestructible. There's like something funny about that, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's the fiber structure. The leather itself is super dense, so if you even take care of it a little bit, it just keeps the leather nourished, then it will last forever. I mean, it's one of those things where if you can get it through the shoemaking process, it'll last for a long, long time. But yeah, it's hard to work with. You can't heat it, so you have to have more last so you can form it and last it, and then let it dry in the last. I mean, it's not the easiest stuff to work with, but like I said, once it's made, it's pretty good.
It's pretty good.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
I agree about that. All right, here's like a shell spin-off question. Is producing Horween work shoe butt a profit loss compared to the 2 shells and strip that would normally be made in its place? Or is the demand for shell just so high that there isn't time to make work shoe butt right now? Which is really one of the most phenomenal boot leathers that you can see.
Yeah, I mean, we do lose 2 shells every single time we make work shoe butt, but generally we try to select the butts that don't have like the giant shells in them. So there's still shell in them, but they might not be as large as some of the others. So it's a ton less work to make. Not to say that it's not a lot of work, because it's still a 3-month product at least, but a lot of the handwork and the second shaving that happens towards the end of the product, we don't have to do, and we can sell it by the square foot. So I would say it's about the same, but the demand for a work shoe butt's much lower than for the finished shells. But we could make more of it if we had more orders for it. It's just one of those things.
Where else is demand coming from other than for work shoes?
For the work shoe butts?
I mean, like, is it using something other than a boot leather, I guess?
Not really. Not to my knowledge. I mean, at least not currently.
Sorry. I really got to figure out why that's happening.
I think it's charming.
Did you catch that reference though? At least.
Wow.
Is that a disturbed
It's
reference?
disturbed.
Yeah.
I guess that's well, I don't know what was disturbing about that, if that was a better placement or not.
All right, so my bandmate said he was testing something, and I asked him to stop. He said he's just going to do that one more, and now I think you might be done.
That's hilarious. Good timing, bandmate.
All right, the people in the chat want more work shoe butts, so we'll be in touch.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's great. I love making that stuff, and there are things that I don't know. We can do it on natural back, which is,
that
or
sounds
we
fun.
can do it mill dyed. I mean, there's a few different ways that we can do it that aren't sort of out there in the world, which I don't want to talk about because I don't want to force anyone to use it that way.
Real pusher. All right, so fellas, let's do this one together. So this is kind of I'm trying to figure out how to get right to the core of this one. But basically, I got some questions from a couple people about, Phil, your definition of crust leather versus aniline on the episode.
Okay.
And we were basically saying that crust leather is like a stop point in the process. And
yeah, crust is like a status of like what is the leather at that moment, and aniline is like a method of, or like it's a variant of like way you would finish. Like a crust leather is inherently aniline unless you've like put in pigments in the color and retanning process. But aniline is like a completely different subject. So I can describe both if you like. Is that helpful?
Yeah, I think, or I don't know, and maybe we could bounce this one off Nick too. Basically, like, I'll just read this. Standard definition, as this person understands, is that crust leather is full grain leather, which only has dye, so no thick, quote, paint on the surface, can be done by the tannery, by the manufacturer, left naked, which we kind of also used as a synonym for crust on the podcast. Aniline dyed is basically all drum dyed leathers where dye penetrates into the hides fully, or as with box calf, left blue in center, then finished a little or a lot. I can run back over that if we need.
That sounds way more complicated than it actually is.
Really? All right,
Yeah.
we'll sort us out next.
It's not wrong, but
No, I mean, there's some truth in there. So aniline just means no pigment, really. I mean, it's like just an aniline leather or a semi-aniline leather. It's sort of, there's a spectrum of how much pigment you can use, which Phil correctly called solid. So it's the difference. Pigment is paint and aniline is stain. So there's a spectrum that you can exist on where you have fully aniline, which is no pigment at all, and then fully pigmented, which is just like painted. And then there's a bunch of area in between. So it's more of like a finishing technique, I guess, or finishing input. And then crust to me just refers to leather that's been tanned and then retanned and then dried, and that's it. So it's just leather that nothing's been done to the surface yet. So it could be it could be mill dyed or not, or any thickness or a very, basically any different tannage. But there are tanneries. I guess they're finishing houses that just buy crust, and they'll take it from the crust forward. So there are tanneries that take it from the hair forward, and then tanneries take it from wet blue forward, and then tanneries that take it from crust forward. So it just depends on what your model is and what you're good at.
Got it. Like, what else? Like, what are you making that's crust? I feel like in the kind of, the boot scene right now, like there's this crust shell from Conceria Chloe, however it's pronounced. That is just like, it does insane things, and multiple people in the Thunderdome are wearing it, and different stuff is happening to it, just via wear, conditioning, etc. But like, that's kind of like branded as crust shell almost. Whereas like what else do you consider to be a crust leather, even if that particular leather is the one that kind of like raised the question amongst more people?
Phil, you want to do this one?
Give me the question again. And
sorry, I can do it. I'll do it.
Like rip off some like leathers that you would consider to be crust and or
like a baseball glove
naked.
is basically crust. Like Latigos that Nick makes. There's variants on the Latigos, but I really like the GBS Latigos. Very much, it's more or less naked. There's a variant that somebody was just chatting about in the YouTube chat about Chrome XL crust. There's a variant on the Chrome XL called Plainsman, which is like kind of naked. The naked stuff is really neat because it tends to give you more ability to like develop and change. The more stuff you put on the leather, the more finished it looks, and then the less opportunity it has to sort of change in my mind in a pleasant way. And there's exceptions to that rule too. What else you got that's crust? I mean, you can make any leather that Horween does as crust. Actually the I call it raw shell. It is basically like what I would probably consider crust for shell cordovan. I don't know. What do you got, Nick?
I mean, everything that we do is crust at some point. At some point through the process, it exists as crust, and then we keep going. So anything can be stopped at that point, and then used for whatever at that point. And the crust, since there's nothing on it, since it's it sort of by definition totally naked, it does age differently than other stuff does. I think that natural Essex is pretty close in a lot of cases to a crust, because there's dye. Well, the dye is not the right description, but we do try to adjust the color a little tiny bit during retan, so there is some consistency to it. But other than that, there's not really much on it, unless someone wants it shiny or dull or UV resistant or something like that. But and then crust shell, for us, that's a total moving target. I mean, is it before it goes into? Is it after it's fully tanned, or is it after it's been fully shaved, or before dye? I mean, it could be.
I don't know.
I'd say
natural could be considered crust, but
right.
You could consider crust earlier on too. So it's a tough. I have
one
to see the Chloe stuff. I haven't seen it in person to sort of get a better idea.
I'll send you some pictures of it. It's whatever that can tell you.
Hey, can I interrupt with a quick question from earlier for you, Nick?
You may.
So how your family made Chrome XL. It's chrome tan with a veg retannage. I know that we've re-chromed things before also, which is sort of the reverse. Why wouldn't you make Chrome XL in the opposite way? Why wouldn't you make Chrome XL with a veg tannage and then retan it with chrome? Or have you done that? Why would you do that? What effect does it have? If I recall correctly, it makes it like firm, like re-chroming stuff like really firms it up.
It's the other way around, really. So the chrome actually will soften it a little bit, but all of the Chrome XL strips and the work shoe butts are all re-chromed. Those start off as veg, and then we re-chrome them in the mills. And the reason to not do that more often is the chrome content is lower, which means less strength and less heat resistance. And also, you're using a ton more of the bark extracts and it takes a lot longer. So it's just a different product and we could do it. But generally, I think that the demand for manufacturing and the end use lends itself better to a product that has more chrome in it because it's softer and stronger, if that makes sense.
Didn't we do the re-chroming on some of those mechanical type, like the pearl stuff? I think that's re-chromed.
That
For Nebraska.
pearl, that's just a straight chrome tannage. It's almost like baseball.
They chrome and then re-chrome?
Chrome and then a chrome retannage.
I just remember that being like crazy firm. So my question then is like, why isn't that soft?
Because it's just the oil content's lower. It's just it's just like the mechanical leather we do. I mean, there's just not a lot of oil in it. Low grease and oil content.
It's weird too, is like that's a mechanical leather, but most popular mechanical stuff is pure veg, right? Or not veg. It's combo. It's veg with a chrome with the veg retan, like the Chrome Excel M's, right?
Yeah, those are chrome with the veg retannage.
Isn't it weird that you also have like a full chrome mechanical? Like why would they do that?
It's not really used for mechanical though. Are you talking about the Nebraska? So I was talking about the stuff that was used for like the grips that gymnasts use over the bars. It goes like on their 2 fingers, so it has to be super abrasion resistant and tough. So we don't end up making a lot of it, as you'd imagine, but it's kind of a cool product. But
they buy like 100 feet
I love that
of this like white ass like mechanical leather every year,
and just slap it on the parallels.
Much.
I didn't know that's what it was for. I'm learning.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Sorry guys, hang on 1 second.
All right, cool. Pepper me, Ben. Let's pepper it.
All right, let's pepper Phil.
This is fun, by the way. I'm glad that we were able to do this, man.
Oh, I love this.
And I'm really glad that Nick was texting me about like video games or something. I was like, come hang out on the...
He's the one sending the goat noises.
Yeah. No, that was for sure my bandmate sending goat noises. He was just laughing at me.
All right, we got Nick back. So let's stay on the crust thing for a minute, because as we were discussing it, like a flood of messages came in, including like, what's the minimum number of crust horse hides we need to get to do a GMTO, which I can follow up on. But yeah, like what, I guess my question before we maybe tap into some of these is like long term, like you look at some of these boots in the Thunderdome, and like Ticho has a pair of the Chloe Crust Gel that he's been wearing for a couple of years, and it just goes wild and in all these different directions, and like blank canvas is one of the words that our man Ash, who's got a pair, just used for it, which I think is a great way to think about it. But like long term, kind of how do you handle it for footwear, or do you even know? Like, do you keep adding conditioner and kind of doing it after the fact, or like is there some sort of like potential breakdown that occurs because of the lack of finishing?
There shouldn't be. I mean, if it's, I can really only speak to the stuff that comes from us. I mean, the structurally and functionally, it's the same as what the finished product would be. So it's really just whatever you want to do and what you want it to look like. I mean, if it seems dry, you should condition it. If it doesn't, then just go with it. Unless you want it darker, then put stuff on it. I mean, it's just whatever you want to do. Yeah, I don't know other places what if they're considering crust, if they're stopping it before one of the oiling phases or whatever, the way that might have some sort of effect on the finished product. But for us, it's basically the same.
That's good. I mean, yeah, lack of, not compromising long-term performance, especially for something that you want to wear pretty hard, seems important.
Yeah,
I would say. But yeah, and then there's kind of a follow-up question there too. Like, do you want to make more of this stuff? Like, would you? And is that just back to the demand question?
Yeah, it's just a demand thing. I mean, we're a made to order tannery, so as long as it reaches, you know, the order is of a size that makes sense for us to actually put into production. You know, we'll within reason we'll make it.
Follow up to that one. So we, kind of just went off about problems and created no solutions to just kind of like all these intertwined industries, right? And like everything that's going on, supply chain and workforce and all that. I don't know that we need to completely dip back into that, but I guess the question is like, for something that's smaller, like you're a made to order tannery, so theoretically you can get anything and you can create the demand. And like at this point, what you maybe see for the rest of 2022, like how much of that is like actually possible? If a bootmaker, if a group of people who wanted to browbeat a bootmaker into acquiring a certain type of leather that you produce, like, is that a short-term reality, midterm reality, like 2023 reality amidst all the stuff that Horween feels like it kind of has to make every day?
It just depends on what the product is. I mean, there are products that we have production, I don't want to say capacity because I feel like we don't have a ton of capacity right now, but there's, especially if you talk about crust, I mean, there are crust leathers that are relatively easy to make because we don't have to do the second half of the process. So,
right.
So yeah, it just depends. I mean, I guess it's a 2022 reality. I mean, it's not, if we're talking about cordovan type stuff, that's always sort of dependent on what's going on and if we even have the ability to fill the order.
Well, I mean, there's like an attached timeline to that automatically. So
yeah, and then the reality is we take care of the long-standing customers first. I don't think that's any secret. If you've been buying cordovan from us for 60 years, you're probably ahead of the line in some regard. But yeah, I mean,
I understand.
Yeah. we've got the ability to make
decent
stuff.
Business.
Right. We've got the ability to make stuff to order, and the minimums are pretty reasonable. It really depends on what the bootmaker wants to do. I mean, I don't want to make it sound like it's overly easy to get leather into a place to get boots made, because it's not always that way.
Right, if I could throw out an idea is, maybe this theoretical bootmaker should reach out to Nick and like come up with 3 options and then have the customers vote on what they want, just like sort of focus it into things that Nick could make happen. But I would hop on.
Let's do that order. Too. What else do we got? Okay, more shell questions. Never a shortage. Is shaved shell cordovan or marbled, or whatever the desired term is, less strong than normally processed shell? Apparently, this person had a slightly bad experience with a pair of boots in shaved marbled shell and is wondering if it was a freak thing. He's, allowing for that possibility, or if it's generally weaker in some way. Like, does the process break it down somehow?
No.
No, I mean,
it's no more susceptible to weakness than any other cordovan product, and if there is a weak spot, then we would catch that, or the bootmaker would catch it. And sometimes it's hard to see, especially on that marbled stuff, since the color variation is all over the place. So there's a possibility they could have not seen the weak spot and cut it into a boot. I mean, it happens.
Got it.
Hey, Nick, I got some pepper for you. You ready?
Yeah, sure.
I still call it whiskey shell. It's my understanding that we're now calling it, or you are now calling it, bourbon shell, because the dyes have changed and we don't want to be completely confusing. Can you just describe like what that's about and like why there could be potential confusion?
other than the name change.
Well, I mean, like, I know, like, so we were talking today in my shop about changing our belt sizing. We do a true to size belt, and I know a lot of places do like a vanity size, which is like how jeans are sized.
Yep.
And my brother's like, well, you've already established this precedent, so now you're going to confuse people like with what your current sizing is. I'm imagining that's the same issue for you with the whiskey, where it's like it's not that different, bourbon versus whiskey, but it's like slightly different. So is that you just don't want to be you want to be transparent about it, or what's the idea there?
Yeah, I mean, it should be the same color. I mean, that we're matching to the same standard, but the dyes have changed. I mean, we've had to reformulate the dyes a little bit. But performance-wise and how it ages and all that stuff should be the same.
Why won't you make me 200 gunmetal shells, or will you?
because they're only gunmetal for like 20 minutes and then they turn brown.
Have you seen black shell turn brown before?
Turn green. Yeah, turn green and brown.
Turns green.
I haven't seen that. I saw a photo of somebody's, but I've never seen it fade.
It gets greener than that photo too that you put in the Discord. It's like, but like that again, that's like 15 years in the window.
Yeah, it gets green, and then it'll eventually turn brown again if you start to age it.
Do you make cognac shell?
Yeah, that's Armagnac now. Same kind of thing with the bourbon.
Welted, where they're still making that, it's just called Armagnac.
Yeah, I mean there's really nothing wrong with still if a customer were to still call something whiskey or cognac or color 2. I mean, it's not wrong. I mean, the color should be the same. I mean, it's always a bit of a moving target with the way we finish with by hand with all the aniline stuff, but there's nothing materially wrong with calling it the same color as it was in the past.
What's color 2 now?
Garnet
or ruby.
Alan Edmonds calls it chili. I think that's what they're
really
buying.
That's the same
on the website for Alan Edmonds. They look really dark. They look more like color 4 to me.
Look again.
They look more like.
It's my understanding. They bought it from us.
Like chilies.
I think they bought garnet from Ashland to like use for shoes. But it's pretty red. All those shells are really. If you watch this YouTube channel, the shells are very directional, and it significantly depends on like the angle of the light and your eyes at the shell. Those fibers in the shell, if you're familiar with like a suede leather, the way that you can sort of pat the nap of a suede in one direction and sort of like brush it back in another, and it gets light and dark. The shells are like a fixed version of that, where there's these directional fibers that point in one direction. So depending on what angle you look at that garnet color 2 ruby or chili shell, if you spin it, it's going to turn 4 shades darker and look more brown, and spin it the other way, it's very vibrant and red. I love that, but it's got to be a challenge for me too, doing product photos to properly present like what your shoe's going to look like. But on Alan Edmonds, that's like the dark range of what the chili looks like. To me, it's like that looks a little bit more like color 4, but like garnet, ruby, color 2, chili are it's like the most red color that Nick makes.
Wait, how do we get to this place where they all have like 8 names?
It's marketing, because we were talking on
like
the podcast,
brand based, like call color, it what you want kind of thing.
Color 8's like hard to market because like people don't understand what the hell that means. Like,
disagree.
We
One
get
of my
it.
favorites. We discussed this.
But for years and years and years, it was color 2 for these, and now they're calling it garnet, ruby, etc. It's a lot easier to say like this is garnet because like people have a sense of like what that means, but the color 2 has no meaning to it.
I mean, I guess you got to be pretty into shell cordovan to understand it, but like it becomes on this scale, and it becomes, to me, it's like this cool piece of like history, right? And chemistry and all that. But Nick, like, so do you send this stuff off and to a manufacturer of, in any industry, you're like, yeah, call it whatever you want, as long as you buy it.
Yep. Unless the only real limitations are, using the trademark names like Horween and Chrome Excel. I mean, that's we sort of appreciate accuracy there, but in terms of color names, yeah. I mean, sometimes we almost encourage people to change the color name away from ours because it's just just, I don't know. Not that it protects the bootmaker or the customer or whatever, but then there's not someone calling us up and saying like, I want to order that this person is making, and this is exactly what they're making, and I'm just going to rip them off. So changing the color name isn't the worst thing.
Hey Nick, do you have any more one-piece shell belts coming soon? Caleb Morse is asking in the chat.
That's
Caleb, you can only buy 5 things this year.
That's
what he told me. We're working on a story.
I actually did just find maybe 8 shells, 8 doubles.
And these are, when you please explain this, I find this fascinating, and I know a lot about it, but please explain like why is a one-piece shell belt, like what's a big deal about that?
Okay, so first, so I have like 8 doubles that are suitable for one-piece belts, and I think 6 of them are color 8 and 2 of them are color 4. So the color 4, I might get 5 or 6 belts out of those 2 huge shells, and then the rest of it, maybe get some 2-piece belts out of it. So I would say if you are subscribed to the Genuine Horror Products mailings, that's probably the only way you'd be able to find out about it unless you're checking the website every day. But so answer that question. And then so the one-piece belts, we need a shell that runs all the way across, that goes over what would be the backbone, and the only shells that do that are shells from a mule. So as you may imagine, we can't order mules. They just sort of come with whatever hides that we might be ordering. And that's, I'm not 1,000% sure, but, work animals that have sort of met the end of their days, and then they go to, the processing facilities and the countries that we're sourcing from. And then if they meet the size requirements that we have for our hides, then they get put into what comes to us. So they're exactly the same. There's absolutely no difference other than the shell is bigger because it goes all the way across.
People might have a hard time, since we're on camera here. I just like to make a visual representation, but the horse butts that are used to create the shell cordovan are like a disconnected figure 8. So they're 2 ovals that do not touch or intersect. And this is why making a one-piece belt like Nick does every so often is really special. It's you can only get they like are a fluke to get these mules that have a continuous shell. So imagine that same figure 8, but there's sort of like a bridge across them.
And they're kind of like a trapezoid shape. They're like a little bit different in the way they're shaped. But we have no idea that they're even mules until we get them, into the process and partially shaved. I mean, they look exactly the same.
And I just love, so I'll send people your direction all the time, Nick, to Genuine Horror Products, where I know that you'll sort those out and you'll get a handful. I don't know how many you get a year, a dozen.
Last year, 0.
Yeah, you just like
really?
Get them when you need to get them, and then you just bogart them for your own stuff.
Yeah,
and I think we sold some belts for you once, and I still get people messaging me a couple times a month, like, "Hey, when can I get another shell belt?" I'm like, I don't make those, and maybe never. So, Genuine Horton Products to hook up. Hey, I got questions, Nick. Can I take over, Ben, for a sec?
Take over.
You're gonna love this though. So, how did the color naming convention for color 2, color 4, and color 8 come about? I have 2 theories. I think you might also have these same 2 theories. It's 2 parts of dye, 4 parts of dye, 8 parts of dye, or 2 coats of dye, 4 coats, 8 coats. Or just like the names of the dyes?
I mean, any of these stories are good for me.
So
but
we don't know.
I think the way it was explained to me was that color 8. So 8 was the dye designation from the manufacturer, 100 years ago, and so color 8 was the base because that's the oxblood color, and then color 4
they just like cut it
half the concentration. Color 2 a quarter, color 6 3/4. Yeah, there's no. But then it starts to get confusing because we have like a color 25, which has no.
Color 25.
That was just like the name of the powder dye.
Yeah,
right.
It's just like, so there's no. And we don't really make color 25. I don't think we've made it in 10 years, but it's just a brown. It's just like another brown.
Here's a selfish ask: is what's your favorite shell color? Do you
probably
have
color
one?
4?
Nice. I
Color
think
4 or unglazed natural, depending on what it's going to be used for. But
your dad's is color 4 also,
Yeah.
right?
color 4 is pretty great.
It's beautiful. I've switched to it. I'm an amaretto man these days, but you can't really wear like a bright ass orange boot or shoe or whatever. It's kind of a tough sell.
Amaretto is crazy. I mean, forgive me, but these are like very, very good sneakers, despite being sneakers.
People have been hitting me up about those.
It's so good. I mean, these Crown Northampton shoes, sneakers. Everything is like Baker leather, stack, and then Horween color 4 on top.
So
this is my first pair of color 4, and it's just.
Are you familiar with the construction on those, Ben? Because I don't understand.
Yeah, completely.
I don't understand how they have adhesion with the shell on the outsole.
Basically, they scrape it. They scrape it, glue it, sidewall stitch it.
Okay.
And with that, I forget the actual term, but some form of scraping. And then they have like a specialty sidewall stitcher, so they're completely resolable too. Through them, like you can't just
that's great.
Take it to a guy.
Because that's my concern with those is like Chrome Excel, and Shell Cordovan are sort of notorious for adhesion. Like you can't really glue like 2 blocks of wax together. So, and that's like, it's like half wax on the shell and oil and grease. So it's like really hard to stick something to it.
Yeah, those are mechanically fastened though with that sidewall stitch, so they'll be fine.
Cool.
Yeah. The sidewall stitch is, I guess, what keeps it together, and then the non-technical term scraping, possibly technical.
We call it
is
roughing.
Actually what makes them roughing. There you go, and that's what makes them able to pull them apart and then put them back together with a new, cup sole.
Hey Nick,
I mean, like, highly recommend these things. And like, I didn't really like these minimalist sneakers, and also I don't really think about sneakers, so it's not totally surprising. But yeah, like, I mean, it lets the shell sing, and color 4 is everything that like I ever really wanted to.
It's beautiful,
imagined could be. Yeah.
Nick, I have another.
That's my favorite, but 25. Let's do it.
Another question for you here is, Marco down in Splitting, he's wondering how you come up with the color names for different leather colors. Or excuse me, color names. I would think I would expand his question.
Yeah,
I would expand. I know that John Culleton names a lot of them, but I would expand his question to like, how do you name all the products too?
It's just there's no rhyme or reason to it. I mean, like the color names could be anything. They could be Pantones. They could be customer driven. They could just be, this is brown, but it's too dark, so we're going to call it dark brown. I mean, that happens all the time. Where it's like dark whiskey. It's deep dark whiskey. It's like
dark cognac.
Mistake.
Great shell color.
So there's no good explanation to how that happens. It just sort of does.
Is there like one through point? Like, does your dad have to like stamp it?
No.
Or like everybody's just throwing stuff on a sheet of paper
John.
And they're like, run it.
I think it's John, to be honest, right?
Yeah, for color names, it's totally sales and customer driven at this point, at least. And then for product names, it's the same kind of thing. I mean, we tried kind of to keep stuff in the same. I guess it's just like for personal. So like Essex,
Dublin and Derby.
And Derby are like the British Isles. So, which is terrible, but at least we know it's like the same product family if we're just like walking up on it for the first time. But that's probably as deep as it goes in terms of any kind of structure.
How about this?
Thanks, Marco.
What if we take like a giant super pole and we come up with a name, and it like will probably be at least kind of dumb, or it won't be fun. And then you have to reverse engineer a leather to fit the name. And then we make a ton of boots out of it.
Feasible.
Challenge.
Sure. Doesn't sound that hard.
It'd be like the leather.
It seems like it would be exactly the same as what's happening, but like maybe the opposite, but also the same.
Hey, Ben has
there's something quaint to it.
Ben Veralt has a really good question here, Nick.
Yes.
Speaking of adhesion, what makes Cavalier cementable and Chrome Excel not cementable? And maybe we should describe what cementable means too.
Yeah. So cementable just means something that's attached with no stitching, basically. So it's glued in place. So like if you think about like vulcanized footwear, most sneakers in the world, those are glued on, and then which is cement, which just means cemented. And then so Cavalier has a lower oil content than a regular Chrome Excel. So we have a couple Chrome Excel variations that have a lower oil content, and that's there could be a different reasons for that, whether it's to be cementable or to try to be Gore-Tex compliant, or in the case of Cavalier, so that we can get brighter colors. So we do lower oil content and different oils so we can do those brighter colors, so we're not stuck to earth tones.
So the adhesion is sort of just like a pleasant side effect of the less oil content. If my recollection is that the Beaufort was the lower the adhesion version of the Chrome Excel.
That's right. Yeah.
Pretty similar. I think the stuffing blends are different on those three leathers: Cavalier, Chrome Excel, and Beaufort.
And the retainage is different too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And one last question, and I'll let Ben take back over. I'm sorry for bogarting everything. What's your both you guys actually? Let's go with Ben first. What's your favorite non-shell cordovan leather? Do you have one? This is from Caleb, by the way, if that matters to you. I know you're a big Caleb fan.
Oh man, like favorite's so tough, you know? Like it depends.
There you go. That's my answer. All right, Nick, you got one? We'll go back to Ben after he looks through his massive boot collection.
I mean, it's Chrome Excel for me. I mean, it's just it's one of the original, or one of our most original products. And I wear a lot more Chrome Excel than I do shell. Yeah, I just think that you get almost everything that you get from a veg leather, you get out of Chrome Excel, because it really is a veg other than the first 24 hours. So it gets chrome tanned, and then we just tan it like you would any other veg leather. It gets a veg retaned and hot stuffed and aniline finished and all that stuff. So I would say Chrome Excel for me.
People are always really surprised with me is not saying shell. And yeah. I'm the same way, man. It's like I have shell and I enjoy it, but there's like so much more that's exciting also. Yeah. What do you got, Ben?
On the Horween side of things, which seems somewhat important right now. Yeah, I've never had a pair of boots in it, but I've become pretty obsessed with the work shoe butt over the last like year. And there's a couple pairs in the Thunderdome that I'm like, man. And there's something about it too in there, like it kind of doesn't budge. And it seems like in 7 months it's like gonna look cool and all rolled up, and takes like a nick here and there, but it's more like a 7-year boot leather almost. Which like I love the idea of that too, just like committing to it and like the long haul, which is kind of counter to a lot of what's going on in that contest, where like some things are moving really, really quickly. Yeah, I don't know, like there's something really satisfying about some of the like simpler, darker leathers and how they age for me. Like the brown dress that Whites uses from Seidel, I think is just really cool and kind of a bit of an afterthought sometimes, because the color doesn't change all that much, but like it absorbs a lot of character. And I'm wearing these. I mean, look, Chrome Excel in the right situation for me is great. Like I'm wearing the pair today that didn't like hook me on boots and quality footwear, but knew that this pair is when I knew that I was like done for in terms of just like the lifestyle and like plunging in deep. And it was like second pair of brown Chrome Excel boots, and they're 7 years old now, I think, just plain toe True Balance Alden boot. And they look phenomenal. And I've never touched them with anything other than Saphir Renovator, I think. And just like a whole lot of brushing. And like it just, you got to look a little harder to kind of find out what they're about. And then actually this would be a fun one. This is a question for me after I answer, but like the French veal that Russell Moccasin uses is so soft. Like I have a shade that's considered to be brown, but like it's not brown at all in the beginning. It's almost like they're kind of naming it into the future.
It sounds delicious though.
And I frankly don't know a ton about like the leather and what it is. And frankly, why they're pretty much the only one.
Let me pull it up on screen.
Like I asked Brett Viberg, and he was like, "Let's get these suckers." And he was like,
"I'm not familiar with these. Is this the French veal here, Imperial?"
Yeah, I mean that's what Russell calls it. And I think it's like, you know, it feels stretchy. It feels pliable. I think that it might not stand up to like the welted construction process. Potentially, but man, you put these things on, it's like it's perfect for this kind of footwear. I mean, this is like the triple vamp kind of full go at it, and yeah, it's just really cool. And like, I mean, I've worn these a bunch. I haven't worn them really this winter.
Hi, Lauren.
This is my wife.
What's up, Lauren? I miss you.
Ben, you're on the internet with a bunch of people.
She can't hear me. What's up, Lauren? Is this less embarrassing than what you thought Nick would be doing?
Was it cold in Chicago?
It's super cold in Chicago. All right, I got about 5 minutes, guys.
All right, cool. Yeah, it's like negative 100. Hey, Nick, what's your favorite Chromexcel color? Is it natural?
Who, me?
Probably.
Oh, Nick.
All right, that was a...
Or British tan. I like British tan a lot.
I think British tan's a sleeper.
Hang on one second, guys.
All right. We're losing Nick. That was fun.
He thought he had forever.
Yeah, I mean, like people are hitting him up with questions in chat too, which is great. We need more Nick to like unveil the mystery. Do you have so I'm looking at your shelf and like everything's sort of like earth tony. Do you feel like in the wallet world, I get people that, in fact, Sherman Tan, who's in the chat here, loves like textures and colors and like different. I feel like in the footwear world, it's really hard to pull off like a bright ass yellow or something, like do you feel like there's a world in which like we can do footwear and like this genre that's like not brown or are we sort of like that's all we're gonna ever get? Stupid.
Are you asking me that?
Honestly, it was more for Ben because I think he knows more about this than we do.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, I think that there's a standard customer who would that like 99% of standard customers would be mortified or confused or impressed, but like unable to kind of do it themselves for like these boots, like which are pretty darn blue. And kind of over time, like the Navy CXL turns into something that I would say is less definably Navy, but up front people are like, well, you're wearing blue boots and that's for sure. And like there was like a bit of the kudu craze that like is still going on, but I think especially like 2 years ago, like right next to these is like the blue kudu boots because it's the blue kudu section or the blue section. And yeah, I think like for most customers, like they're just simply not interested in that. Like it's too bold. And then you can find like crazy colors, yellow, white, whatever, and like patent Doc Martens, but that's like a kind of a different kind of look.
Mm-hmm.
There were like some like I guess kind of yellow, kind of green. I didn't spend that long looking at them, like ostrich like two-tone whites that somebody posted in the Discord the other day, and then everybody had a good old-fashioned good time with them.
Ostrich is a very specific look.
Well, I mean, you got ostrich.
It looks like very Mexican cowboy boot to me every time I see it, even if it's just like a sheet of it. I don't know. Looks like a cowboy boot.
Yeah, well, I mean, Grant Stone came out with those ostrich boots that were, essentially what we're talking about, like kind of a brownish boot. So it like quiets out the ostrich a little bit and it looks a little crazier, but like, yeah, I mean, somebody, posted way back in this chat and we didn't ask and Nick wasn't here. Like, when are we going to see the aquamarine, like that gunmetal? Like I think there is certainly a market for it, but unfortunately it's not a huge one. And in some ways it's for people who are like me. Like I bought a pair of, kind of tan-ish, whatever, Thorogoods. That was my first pair of great boots that I actually was like, I'm going to care about this now. Then I bought a pair of brown CXL Indies. Then I bought these boots that I'm wearing right now. And I was like, I'm looking for the perfect brown boot. And then once you get past that, you're like, all right, what's next? Like, what do we do? Where do we go with this?
More brown.
And yeah, and I think it kind of starts with colors. And then, this isn't for everybody, but for me and certainly others and people in Thunderdome, like it moves on to like evolution, right? You're like, well, I don't even know. Like, I want to know where this is going to end. And like, it's really cool to see into the future that way. But you're like, I just want to see it change. I want to see it go somewhere. Like, I kind of like the surprise. And in some ways that's more fun than saying like, I got yellow boots, guys. Like, aren't we all having a great time?
All right, guys, I'm sorry. I gotta run.
No problem, man.
If
you weren't even supposed to be here. This is fantastic.
If you want to compile questions,
I'm supposed to be here today.
I'm happy to answer whatever questions there
I'll keep some notes and maybe we'll do it again, man.
All right, sounds good.
Thanks for coming.
Guys. Thanks for the question, everybody. Bye.
Nick Horween. How about that?
There he goes.
I like Nick, man. We should do more chats. It's funny because I used to see Nick every day and we would just like, work together. It's different. And grew up with the guy. It's weird like not working with him every day anymore. So it's fun to see Nick.
All right. Now that he's gone, what kind of trouble did you guys get into in high school?
We would do a lot of stupid crap. Like playing around in like construction sites and just like throwing rocks. I mean, like we weren't really that bad, but it's just like we were very silly, creative nerds. Like play video games together and like throw rocks into manholes for fun. It's like weird. It's like if this rock goes in the hole, like whatever you said comes true. That kind of stuff, like kid stuff. But we didn't really like get into trouble until like later. I mean, because Nick and I, we did the math. We were hanging out when we were like 11, so we were doing like kid stuff, and now his kids are almost the age we were when we met, which is wild.
Don't think about it too hard.
It's brutal, man. My daughter's about to turn 1 next month.
Congrats, man.
Yeah. And by the way, Nate and Hugh, you had really good questions in the chat. So I'm gonna keep a log of some of these things and make sure to ask Nick about them and maybe rope him back into another one of these because I thought that was good information.
Oh yeah. We got to get him back. I'm like running out a little bit of steam here too. So
sure.
But let's do a couple more. Here's a fun one.
All right.
If you had 6 different feet, Phil, would you wear 3 of the same pair or 3 different pairs or some other combination?
I really, really like this question. That's a really creative question. I actually think I would wear all matchy. These days I like a simple, easy thing. I tend to have a philosophy recently of just like doing less is better. But generally everything. In fact, if do nothing is a choice that works, that's probably the best option for me right now. So I would try to simplify it down. I would also like with the Stitchdown, although I'll admit to you, Ben, is I haven't worn my trench boots the last couple of days because it's a pretty good amount of snow that we had in Chicago.
And they got leather soles. I
wouldn't be here. I'd be dead.
You already slipped once.
Yeah, it's pushing that car, man. Yeah, so I mean, I would wear them every day. Like I have bass guitars, and a lot of people have like, I don't know, a lot of guitars. I just want one ring to rule them all, right? Like I just want one good thing that I love.
I see 2 back there.
There's 2. I just got a new one because I wanted a different vibe. But that other one I've had for 8 years, and it was the only one I've used. So I like one great thing and just like going hard on that one thing. Just like the t-shirts, like give me one great t-shirt that's going to last and it's comfortable and stylish. Like I want one instead of like 20 cheap things. Like just give me the one good one. So I don't know if that answers the 6-footed question, but I like the question a lot.
It sounds like you just don't want people to realize that you have 6 feet and you're going to throw them off the scent by wearing the same boot.
Yeah,
you got a shot at it.
That's it. That's the real answer.
Yeah, I think you switch them up and just do basically if you have 6 feet, you're like, I am a huge patina test. Like I am a presumably walking, if you can figure that part out with 6 feet.
I'm the guy though that like
time capsule into the future.
I'm the guy that wants
the
song that you like over and over and over. Like I'm that guy.
Yeah,
like,
I'm kind of that guy.
I just want like the thing I like. Give me the thing I like over and over. That's me in a nutshell. So that's what I would do with the boots too.
I gotta come to one of your concerts.
You should, man.
It's like 2 hours of the same song.
It's just like over and over one note. This G sharp, man. I don't know. It's great.
Let's see. What else do we got here? Leather. I mean, is a Chicago hot dog a sandwich?
I saw that somebody wrote that it's a taco, and I'd say that that's probably more accurate, except no tortilla.
Soft shell.
I'd say it's a sandwich. I'm gonna go sandwich.
All right, let's take a deep turn into the future. Do you know anything about lab grown leather?
I know that not leather. I know they're doing a lot of lab grown meat stuff. So there's actually Amir, who used to work for me and just quit this month. Used to be concerned. He said, Phil, what are you going to do when there's like no beef? Like they're not going to be having this hide. I don't think that's going to happen for a very long time. Like I think people are going to want their burgers, and it's going to have to be a lab meat that's better. It's got to be better and cheaper. And right now, I think they're far away on both of those things.
Impossible meat is pretty solid.
It's different.
I'm
though,
making
right?
Impossible burgers tomorrow. It is different, but in some ways,
I like it.
Similarly satisfying if cooked properly.
It's one of those brands that reminds
when you're
me,
like mashing them up into burgers. Like it's like that's the point where you're like something feels off.
Doesn't it give you like a breakfast sausage kind of vibe? I forget which brand it was, but it tasted like, I liked it. It tasted like breakfast sausage to me.
That to me, the Beyond is a little more like that.
Mm-hmm.
But like there is something, as a substitute, let's say, there is something to it. Is everybody going to flock to it immediately? No. But like, yeah, can you, but I haven't researched this nearly enough, but yeah, they're definitely trying to like grow leather in quote unquote leather.
They're doing like mushroom leather I've heard about. That's just apparently not great. I mean, there's other, that I just broke my own rule. Like to me, just like call it something else. It's like not really leather if you're making it out of mushrooms. It's like leather paste or something. So there's a reason that the baseline is leather, is because it's like the one that you want. It's just like Beyond Burger is not called vegan beef or whatever. It's different. It's something else, which is good. Like I think that's what they should move towards more, is like lean into like what they actually are. I'm not really concerned. I don't think there's like a surplus of food in the world, so I'm not really concerned about the beef industry going away. Does that answer the question?
Glad to hear it. Yeah, I think so. Like, look, there's a lot of long-term problems when you look at the world, and it's probably not our job to solve or explore them too deeply tonight. But yeah, I don't think we're going to run out of leather just yet, so that's good.
Well, I mean, honestly though, like they can't make it fast enough, so that's a thing. That's more concerning. Is like, I don't know. It's like a very hot political topic, I suppose. Is like the supply chain sort of conversation, and inflation is like another conversation. But like that's a reality right now that we should be talking about and more worried about than like what happens if like everybody's vegan. Like that, I don't see that happening in the short term, or maybe ever. So I don't know. I don't worry about those sort of things.
Clearly, you haven't tried Soylent. It's delicious.
Isn't that made out of people?
Yeah. There's a lot of people, man. I don't know if there's more cows or people, but
that's actually a good question. I don't know either. There's probably more people. Not sure.
I'm going with people at any given time.
I mean, the other thing is like deer are going to keep breeding whether we kill them or not. So like you're gonna have leather in some form, and you're gonna have like native cows just or steers or whatever just roaming around like eating grass. They're not gonna just like go away.
Yeah, the deer,
bison and buffalo, and they'll be around.
Deer by me aren't going anywhere. There's a lot. Phil,
what's up, Clayton? You're the only one I'm going to stop for because Clayton's one of my BFFs. Clayton grew up with Nick and myself. And Clayton, you just missed Nick. One more thing. MH asked an exceptional question, and I missed a bunch of questions above this. Just getting to this one. Do you guys ever eat leather sandwiches? No. And that's the scream. I have no idea where these screams come from.
Tuesdays in grade school. That was what they fed us.
You know what? Every
Tuesday.
You shouldn't let your animals eat leather either. Like I don't necessarily think that the chrome stuff is like necessarily good for them. So I don't know. Like if I get a lot of customers that are like, "Hey, my dog ate my wallet." Like, don't let them eat your. Like, just keep it away. Obviously, they didn't want that to happen, but like I think there's enough animal product like in the leather that it smells appealing to dogs, but like keep it away from the dogs. I don't think it's good for them.
What about like rawhide bones? That's okay.
That's completely different. They're made for that. Actually, my business partner used to work at a dog bone place. Tim Allen's back. Oh my god, I don't know why. I thought I muted everything too, and I don't know how to fix this. So
we got a breach. Phil, if you could sustainably and ethically make a pair of boots in any animal's leather, let's say it's not a cow, not a horse, what would it be?
Sustainable, like it wouldn't really matter.
You don't have any concerns, you're not worried about anything. Nobody thinks that you're bad.
So is the question more about like what do I think is most interesting looking?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, I would say like pretty nasty to think about, but like the fetal calf stuff, like actual like day old calf is, and I'm gonna actually Skip has some for me right now, but the like there are some labs that do like weird lab testing like for viruses and stuff, and they'll come up with these hides from like literal day old animals. It's like pretty terrible to think about, but the skins are really nice. The grains are like, you can really tell. And apparently something happens when the animals start eating grass as opposed to just milk, but the grain really tends to change. It like is very, very fine when they're just eating milk. All those little dots of the hair holes are super close together, and the break tends to be very tight. And then as they eat grass, they tend to the actual holes of the grain, that texture looks different. Alan! Well, that's a bad one to happen. I literally don't know where that's coming from. I've muted everything. Why is this happening?
It's been me the whole time.
Really?
No.
I know it's not, because these are the soundboard sounds that my band uses. It's obviously them. I don't know if that answers your question either, but like the infant calf is like very, very nice. I mean, shell is really nice, but like if everything was shell, it wouldn't be special anymore. So it's a tough one.
It's a tough one. I had a buddy of mine who does like, all the design development and like is very, very, deep on all the leather stuff for like a larger bootmaker kind of out of our space, but does really cool things. And he sends me an email the other day. He's like, just got a whole bunch of hippo. And it's like these pictures of these hippo hides. And I was like, well, that's wacky.
That's different. I get people that email
I'll post them
me.
in the Discord. But it was like, I mean, just I don't know how you cut it. You cut it with the idea that like you have no hope of creating any sort of consistency, and maybe it's different when it's lasted.
Yeah, it's gnarly though. That stuff's rough.
But yeah, it was.
I've had a guy email me. He's
Ethical
like,
hippo.
I've got 10 giraffe skins. Do you want them? And I'm like, what? Like, why? First of all, like, why? And then secondly, like, I can't sell that. Like, that seems like illegal, right? But, I guess there's like all sorts of crazy animal skins all over the place.
Yeah, I mean, they don't all last forever. Let's see. I don't know. Can I share my screen on this?
Yeah.
All right, just ignore all like the other tabs and everything. Host disable participant screen sharing, but he allows in all these sounds.
How do I allow it for you? All right, try it now. Just don't put any like inappropriate porn or whatever on there.
I can't guarantee that at all. Allow Zoom to share my screen. Screen recording. Full lock.
It's not working.
Possibly slightly too much pressure.
I'm getting some great questions about goat screams in the chat, by the way.
I gotta quit and reopen. And if I leave, which I think I need to do in a minute, I'm gonna do it. I'll drop the hippo into the Discord.
Okay. So we do one ultimate question to finish it off?
You got it?
No, I mean, I want you to, if you have any more.
I mean, I think there's a bunch of other good ones that we could have ran by Nick.
Yeah.
They're like, are you going to make me this? Are you going to make me this? And he should make them all.
I could probably guess, if you want to rapid fire lightning round those, I could probably guess whether or not they do them with 99% accuracy.
All right. I like this one. How often is Horween looking to develop new, grain leathers, embossed stuff, either natural, stamped, or embossed? Many makers seem intent to reinvent their shoes with new grain style tanned leathers.
Every month there's new footwear companies, different brands trying to do something new. That before COVID, it was every week used to be my job, is like new development. They would do that all the time. These days, like, they actually lost the guy. The sample finisher doesn't work there anymore. He moved to Florida. And they just like can't make their normal stuff fast enough. So I think they sort of like stopped development for the moment, but under like quote unquote normal circumstances, they're developing new stuff every day.
How much of that stuff makes it through?
1%.
Really?
I think I had a quote somewhere.
1%. That's a ton of development work.
Yeah. It's not a lot of them.
Like burn development work,
Yeah, it's not. Most things aren't hits. Like the most recent hit that I can think of. Well, I guess the olive tanned is the most recent hit. But you have 100. It's probably a 1% like success, and then even then, like maybe of those 1%, like another 1% of them are like classics. So they've only come out with one classic in the last 10 years, which has been like the Essex Dublin Derby stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's not a lot. It's they're probably only like 4 or 5 like absolute classics that Horween makes right now. But you could bet that every they're working every under normal circumstances, they're working with these larger companies to like make the new hit something different, whether it's a texture, a look, a feel, a color. They're doing that every day. Viberg tends to have some of the more different things. You can find some of the Allen Edmonds and even the Timberland Boot Company used to do a lot of the new products. I think they were
some really cool leather. I had a pair, and then like I think another pair that didn't fit, like whatever it was 10 years ago, 12 years ago. They were making some really good boots. They were ahead of the curve.
I think Rancourt was making for them for a bit too. So they're making nice stuff. And like a lot of the new exciting ideas were coming from Timberland Boot Company. I don't think they have the same leadership in that segment of the business anymore. I don't know how much Timberland Boot Co. there is, but that's where it was for a minute.
I believe it still exists, but yeah, it's not. I mean, there was cool stuff. It looked old, it looked vintage, and like a lot of that was leather driven. And I don't think it was necessarily just like, kind of beating them up in the shop or whatever it kind of seemed like they were doing. Follow up.
Yep.
How do we get like the 5 hides of all this experimental stuff? What happens to it?
They sell it. They the development orders come in, and they're usually for 20 to 100 square feet. So we're talking like 1 to 5 sides of leather. It's nothing in the scheme of things. And Timberland, let's use an example. Timberland Boot Company says like, I want orange Austin leather, which is what they did for Supreme years ago. They brought this like bright ass orange leather to make like something for Supreme. And they only ordered 10 sides of it. And that was the end of it. Like you could have seen that as Ben and going like, hey, I saw that they use this orange. Like I'd like to order some of that too. You could turn around and order it.
Right. I mean, they write down the formula.
But like the development stuff gets sold. And then there's like trials that we would call it, like development trials. Those tend to not get sold. Or if they are sold, they're sold as rejects. And the reason why, they're sort of lotted off into like one truckload, and you go like, hey, resell this whole truckload as scrap or whatever. So they'll like just lot it off. But the reason why they sell off those development things is because they can't reproduce it. They're sort of guessing and trying stuff, and for one reason or another couldn't do it again, or like didn't like the idea, and they'll just like get rid of it. I mean, you could probably ask them to have it, but the problem, like, you don't want to do that, because if somebody says like, I love that boot, give me another one of those, you'll never be able to do it, because they'll never be able to make it again. So that's why they just like get rid of it, sell it off.
Yeah, and like as a boot maker, you don't really get good at creating boots with it the right way, right?
Mm-hmm.
But could be kind of fun.
I mean, you could ask him. Why not ask him?
I plan to.
I don't think Alden would use any of that though.
Maybe.
You know what though, man?
Definitely not.
Since our first video together with the Luxe leather, that Arabica color, now that I'm seeing people wearing it, I'm digging it. I think it's like a perfect new offering for Alden. That look, it's just different enough to be cool and not obnoxious. Like that texture is subtle and interesting, and not like obnoxious and overwhelming.
Yeah, I mean, I think the texture, as we discussed on that episode, can be, a little varied just in terms of like how tight everything is. But yeah, on the tight version, it looks it's almost a dressy leather kind of to begin, and then it starts to get like a little chunked out. Right. Show through.
Well, see you later.
And it's pretty fun. But yeah, I mean, I imagine you've seen Nick's Edward Greens that he's wearing in the Thunderdome.
Honestly,
Bracken Lux.
I saw those in person this week. We had lunch together, and I told him like, those need a polish. Like they're pretty roughed up right now. I feel like the design and pattern of Edward Green is like a little refined for the way that he's worn them. Like I don't know if those are the best Thunderdome boots, but I was like, yeah, these need like a little.
So good.
They need a little something.
Yeah, I mean, you could bring them back, but man, like that boot new.
It's pretty nice.
Absolute showstopper.
Mm-hmm.
Really cool color, and yeah, I think it's very different than what obviously they normally make, and he was, in a special position to kind of talk him into it.
Yeah, he got hooked up.
They look good though. They look good.
Yeah, man.
Bracken, like that's now we're getting into some hot naming conventions here.
Marketing. That's good marketing. Oh, you know what Bracken is? That color comes from a Pantone book. So I think it's. See?
It has been me.
I think we should get out of here before the soundboard ruins our lives. But I'm kind of into this, man. We should try to do the skin without
to do this
Loser!
sans sounds.
Wow.
They're taking over.
Yeah, we just got to de-hack ourselves. All right, one last question, Phil, and then let's shut this sucker down.
All right, cool.
Holy Jesus. What is that? What the fuck is that?
I don't even know what that's from.
Yeah, they're running out of the actually recognizable soundboard mashing audio files. The basses behind you.
Yeah.
Do you guys play? When's the next show? How do we come see it?
Actually, man, I just remembered. They've been texting me all day. We're supposed to have a couple shows in Chicago here because we were supposed to have shows. We released an album in November, but everything shut down after that. There's the quack. Oh, the band's taking over chat. We were supposed to have a show, and then COVID and people are getting sick. So I think things are starting to come back again. And Austin, if you're hearing this, I'll respond to your text message. But I think we might be playing a show in March. But we've been playing on Twitch. I think he's in there right now. Playing music on Twitch. It's pretty fun, man. Like I said, I was teaching some guy bass parts to Sepultura in Mexico the other night, just in my basement. It was pretty fun. Twitch is cool.
Technology.
It was cool. I had a lot of fun. It's just a fun way to interact with people and play music. But a lot of stuff on Twitch is video games. So music's a little different.
Well, look, I and a few other people may be in Chicago in a couple months. So.
Oh, yeah. Nick told me about that. Yeah. Anybody that comes, if you're having a group, you guys are all welcome to come by my shop. I have so much leather over there, so much unique leather, different shell finishes that people have never seen. So you guys are welcome to come by and go through all my stuff.
I think we'll have to.
All right, cool.
Phil, look, this is great. Thanks everybody for coming out. I think we should do this again, right?
I'm down. I would love to, and we should do it with Nick again too, or anybody else you'd like. But I feel like Nick's not out enough, so we got to get him answering more questions. I've been on him for years about doing that, so
I'm glad he submitted. Let's get him to resubmit.
All right, cool, man.
Well, let's
shut it down.
All right, seriously, thanks everybody for coming out.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, see you in Discord all over the damned internet, and good evening.
All right, we'll see you later, guys.